Okay, today's lecture, the objective here is to expose you to both the theory and some code in JavaScript with two very common operators called the spread operator and the rest operator. I pit them up against one another and I say versus, spread versus rest, just because they're both syntactically the same exact thing. You've got three dots for the spread operator, and you've got three dots for the rest operator. So when is it doing that operation versus the other operation? When is it doing spread versus rest? These operators are very common in modern JavaScript. You will see them a lot in this class. And so again, the objective today is to expose you to the theory and the code so that when you see them, you'll be comfortable working with them and using them. Okay, so the spread operator will start here. The spread operator expands an iterable. What is an iterable? What do you think an iterable sounds like it does?
Something that
Iterable.
over an array.
Yeah, so you're using you iterate over an array, meaning you loop over it kind of thing. So iterates means you loop over. So again, it expands something that's iterable, so like an array or an object, into its individual elements or properties. Okay, I would advise you when you see spread, or when you think of spread, it's unpacking something. Like in the real world, you're unpacking a suitcase. And so when I think of spread versus rest, I like to think of it in that case. If you're unpacking something, right, you're taking a suitcase with a bunch of things in it and you're taking those things out. That's what spread is useful for. Okay, so how do we actually use spread in JavaScript? The most common use case that I see is actually when you're combining objects together. So if you're combining, you got two different objects. Let me give you a little bit of code. Here's object 1 and here's object 2. Okay, so we've got object 1. Little feedback.
Sorry, my computer's exploding.
What I want you guys to notice about these two objects is that there's one repeat property. So object 1 has a name and an age and a city. Object 2 has a city and a country. So we actually have some conflicting data here. Okay, so before the spread operator, the traditional syntax to combine objects was with object.assign. And in fact, many of you in your labs have used object.assign. It looks familiar. And so this is the old syntax for creating a new object that is the result of combining two objects. Now, question for you here. These two objects have some conflicting data. One says the city of St. Louis, one says the city of New York. On line 11, I have this new object called in old syntax. What do you think the city would be? Do you think the city will be St. Louis or New York? Raise your hand in my class if you think it's the city of St. Louis. Everyone's going to pick one or the other. All right. How many would say New York? How many didn't raise their hand? Okay, cool. So the order here does matter. And, to spoil it, let's see what the result is. Now, I'll let the command prompt do the talking here. Okay, so let me cd to my desktop, cd to this folder, and I'm going to run the JavaScript file. So here's the object assign syntax, and those of you who said the city of New York, you would be correct. Now, how did you guys know that? Because the order matters, and the second property would overwrite the first, right? So in this case, object 1 had the city of St. Louis. This object 2, the city of New York, would overwrite the city of St. Louis. So the order matters. But that's the old syntax. More concisely, you can use this newer syntax. This is the spread syntax. Again, think of unpacking your suitcase. The suitcase in this case are your two objects. Okay, so you're unpacking object 2, you're unpacking object 1 into its individual components. Notice this time I put object 2 in front of object 1. So if order matters here, raise your hand if the city is St. Louis on this one. Raise your hand if the city is New York on this one.
Wait, it's backwards to what I thought it was.
Yeah, it's backwards. So object 2 goes in first, object 1 goes in second. If I run it here, the spread syntax, the winner in this case is St. Louis, right? The order matters. I think you guys get the idea. So again, spread is used to combine objects. You see this a lot. Okay, now here's another syntax for using spread. Okay, in this case, we're declaring our new object. We're spreading object 1, and then we're saying City of Los Angeles, country, USA. So this is just a different syntax for doing something pretty similar, but you see this syntax where you have a new object here. You spread object 1, and then you put the updated properties. So between object 1, we've got the city of St. Louis and the city of LA. I think you guys are catching the grip of this. How many people say the city of St. Louis? How many people say LA? You guys are catching the hang of it, so let me save the file. And voila, the city is Los Angeles. We're getting the hang of it. Now, I did say that this is used to combine objects. It is true that arrays are objects, right? So we can do the same thing with arrays. We can spread arrays just like we can spread objects because arrays are in fact objects. Here we've got two different arrays. You can see we are spreading these arrays. Anyone want to take a guess what the output is?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sounds like a pre-K class because it's pretty simple. You now know how to spread arrays. You now know how to spread objects. Okay, that's the first purpose. The first purpose of spread is to combine objects together. The second purpose of spread is to pass elements of an array as individual arguments to a function. So this is another way that you'll see spread. Again, we're passing individual elements of an array as arguments to a function. So let's just take a look at an array. So here's a numbers array. And here we are spreading our array and passing individual. So the first time we call math.max, it's going to pass 13. We call it again, pass it 12, pass it 33, pass it 11. I mean, common sense will tell you what the console log will log there. But this is unpacking. We're unpacking an array and passing each individual element. Again, unpacking a suitcase. I like that analogy. I hope you like that analogy. And if we run that, of course, the math.max is 33. But this is how we spread an array and pass it into a function as individual arguments. So we're calling this function once, passing it 13. We're calling it a second time, passing it 12, 33, and 11. Okay. Now, the rest operator is the opposite. So if spread is unpacking your suitcase, rest is kind of packing the suitcase. Right? If you could just remember unpacking and packing a suitcase, you can begin to remember spread and rest. Combining words. Spread. Think of packing a suitcase when we're thinking of the rest operator. So purpose number one, when you're using the REST operator, again, 3 dots. So it's oftentimes confusing which one it is, but it's just a matter of, are you packing something in or are you unpacking something out? So REST is often used in function parameters to accept a variable number of arguments. Do you guys remember in C# having what was called a params array? A params array is one function argument that accepted any number of parameters. You could have a parameter array in C#. We can write a function. Everyone check this out. Line 35. We are writing one function that can take a variable number of inputs. We could pass it 1 input, 2 input, 10 inputs. Okay? So it then takes all of the inputs and packs it into an array. This array on line 37 is iterable, of course, so we can for each over it, sum up all the individual numbers and return that total. Okay, so we take individual items, we pack them together. That is an example of REST. Now I can pass any number of inputs here. I could pass it, in this case, these are 5 arguments that are being packed together into this variable. And of course, if you add 1 plus 2, that's 3, plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 5 is 15. I would expect this to output 15. But again, this is flexible. This is flexible. So if you run it like so, we can get 3, and you can pass it any number of integers. Or any number of doubles, floating, whatever, and it will sum those numbers. Okay? So again, packing it together. Let me Control Z those changes and move on. Purpose number 2 for REST is it can be used as part of destructuring. That's why I talked about destructuring first, where on the left-hand side of the assignment operator, you're pulling out individual values of an array or an object. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at line 47 and line 48 for me. What do you think, based on my code, what do you think's going to happen here? I mean, the names kind of give it away.
10, then 20, then 30, 40, 50, and the rest of the array?
Yeah. So this is where you often hear, like, where does the word rest even come from? It's like you're going to assign the rest of the values when you're destructuring here. Spread makes sense because you're taking something and you're spreading it out. Rest, when you're packing it in, kind of doesn't make sense. The word doesn't make sense to me until this point right here, where it's like, hey, the first is going to be 10, the second is going to be 20, and then the rest of the array is going to be whatever is left. It's the rest of it. Makes sense, right? It's the rest of the values. And so that's, here we go. We got the first of 10, second is 20, and then the rest of the array is 30, 40, 50. Cool? And last but not least, it works the same way with objects. We can use the rest operator. Now these identifiers, they have to match these property names. A would be equal to 1, B would be equal to 2, and then the rest of object would be the rest. And so if you kind of look at that, A is 1, B is 2, and the rest of object is the rest. Okay? So again, the objective here was to expose you guys to spread and rest and just show you their use cases and how they're useful. They're used all over the place. You're not going to be a master of them today, but in this course, you will get very comfortable. Cool? Questions on spread or rest? All right. let's get to labs.